Hello there, it's Sue Ralph here from Birdcage Craft Studio, and I've got a new project that I wanted to share with you today, and these are called Luscious pigment paints, and they're by IndigoBlu, and they have this gorgeous luster to them. They're actually powder form, but you can do so many different things with them. You can mix them with water to make watercolors. You can actually mix them in with your embossing paste, and I'm going to show you how to do a couple of techniques today, just so that you can see how you can use them and what really good value they are for money. So I had the pleasure of receiving 6 of these little pots of magic, and I'm going to show you, as I said, a couple of things that you can do with them. I'll just quickly go through the colours that I have. I've got this purple, and then I've also got the gold, and I have blue, silver, pink, and this is the bronze colour. And as you can see, I've already got a palette in front of me now, and what I did, I mixed up some of the powders with some water, slightly warm water, because it helps to dissolve the powder quicker, and I've left them overnight, and what they've done is they've all dried out now, so they're not wet at all. So what you just need to do is you just need to sort of just spray them or put a little drop of water on just to make them back to liquid, and then you can actually paint with them like watercolours. And then, as you can see, I've got more than 6 on my palette. I've actually mixed up some different colours, joining a couple of the colours together. So we'll make a start. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to move some of this out of my way just a little bit, and I'll keep the white paper there just for the minute so you can see easier. And I'm just going to show you how I mixed up the watercolours. So really what you want to do is you just want to make yourself have a nice little mixing palette. I'm just going to add some of the blue, and you don't need a huge amount. Just going to put the powder just in the middle, and then I'm just going to add some water. And again, you don't need to add very much. I'm just going to use a spray bottle and just put a couple of sprays of water in there, and then I'm going to get a paintbrush just ready to use in a minute. And what I think I'll do is I'll just use the end of my spatula. I'm just going to bring the water in to the paint and just give it a mix. I'll bring this up so you can actually have a better look. I'm not sure if the camera's picking up the sort of luster that you're getting off this, but it's well, it's alchemy really. It's absolutely beautiful. If I just mix all of that in. And then when you've made all your colours up, you've then got a palette of colours ready to start painting whenever you want to, basically. And as I said, you just recharge them just by putting a drop of extra water on, and then you can get going. So with this one, I'm just going to paint a background, and then I'm going to leave it to dry so that I can show you how you can stamp on it a little bit later on. So let's put the lid back on that. Knowing my luck, I will knock it off. So I'm just going to move this white card out of the way, so that I can then clean up quite easily. I'm just going to get a piece of white paper or card and a thicker paintbrush. I'm going to add just a little drop more water, and then I'm just going to pick up the paint on my paintbrush, and then I'm just going to paint the background. And can you see how quickly it covers? You know, it's quite a rich pigment in this. You haven't lost any of the colour by adding water to it. So I'm just going to cover that all over, and then I'm going to set that to one side to dry, and then I'm going to stamp on it in a little bit. I can just hold that up and see if we can get you to see that luster, that shine on it. It will actually shine a lot more when it's dried. The mica in it, the pigment's going to come out a lot more. Right, so pop that to one side. Do is that you can actually make your own embossing powders. So if you've got a colour, you know, you want a particular colour but you haven't got that in embossing colours, you can get yourself some clear embossing powder, and I always keep my little jars because they come in quite useful. And then what you want to do is you want to put a couple of scoops of your embossing powder, the clear embossing powder, into a jar. like so. And I think I'm going to I think I'm going to use the bronze. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop some of the bronze in. Okay, again, you don't need too much because they are quite strong colours. And then I'm just going to mix that up. Just make sure that it mixes in really nicely. Like so. See, that's mixed in really nicely. So now I've got a pot of bronze, whoops, wrong lid, of bronze embossing powder whenever I need it. So I'm going to grab another piece of card, and this time I think we'll go with some black. And then I'm going to get my stamp, and for the demonstrations today I'm going to use the Dinky Butterfly stamp. Butterflies come up. And now I'm just going to get my big brush, and I'm just going to brush off that pigment. There, it's got a nice clean image now then. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring in my paints and a smaller brush, and I think I just put a little drop of water just over the top of the blue and the purple, just to start them going again. Maybe even just a little pink, and then just mix that round, and you see it's hardly taken any time at all, and then you've actually got the colour coming up. So now you're ready to start painting. So I'm just going to add a little bit of colour. And because I've done the embossing, it should repel the colour, so it should just stay on the black. It shouldn't go on to the embossed part at all. A few minutes just to show you another technique you can use with it as well. There we go. So I'm just going to put it to one side to dry. So we've done a couple of different techniques now. So another one I wanted to show you using the same watercolour palette. I've actually used the thick Slap It On, and I put it through a stencil onto a piece of black card. Can you see that lovely gloss? What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my stencil back over it now. And I'm going to show you that you can use your paints to go back over and paint all the detail back in. Right, so I'm going to line the stencil up so I can just see all the glossy parts through, and then I'm going to hold it in place and get my paintbrush again, and then I'm just going to go in with some of the other colours. Just pop a drop of water on just to reinvigorate them. So I put some water on all of the different colours that I've made up. So I'm going to start off with this blue that I've made. Now you're going to need it slightly thicker. You don't want it too watery because obviously you want it to stay on top of the paste. Extra thick Slap It On, and I'm going to mix some of the Luscious powders with it to make my own embossing paste. So I'm going to pull the camera back out just again a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing. So I get another piece of card. I'm going to pop, I think we'll do it that way around, pop that in the centre here. And then I'm going to get some of the Slap It On, and I'm going to use a acrylic block just to mix them up so I don't get my workspace messy, because knowing me, I'll put my hand in it and I'll get it everywhere. So I'm going to put a dollop here, one in the middle, one in the end, and that should be enough for that tag. Okay, and this one is obviously totally my own sort of creation of colour, so you can do all sorts, you can mix all the colours together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop all these different colours down onto my mask, and I'm just going to hold my mask down rather than taping it, and I'm just literally going to smear some of the colour on in different places, so we're going to get sort of a multi-tone look. Well, that's what I'm hoping for anyway. And you can either use one of these little spatulas, or you could actually use a credit card. Anything like this, this will help to just pull all of that paste down your card. So, and can you see now you've got a mixture of different colours. I'm just going to go back over, make sure that tag is totally covered. And then lift up the mask, and there we go. And that's going to take probably about an hour to dry, and again, you probably won't see all the colours as well at the moment, but once it's dry you'll get all that lovely sheen come through, and I will put a picture of it up at the end. So I'm going to leave that one to dry now. So just give me a minute to clear up, please. And I'm going to put the mask straight into some cold water, and then I can sort of wash that in a minute. So I've got another piece of card, I've got some fat foam and my flitter glue. I'm just going to pop some on there, and then I'm going to push that just in, making sure that disappears. So I'm making my own glue stamping pad. So you can spread it on a bit like you spread your butter on. Okay, make sure that all disappears all into the fat foam. Okay, I'm going to put it upside down just while I get the rest of this ready, so that the air doesn't get to that. That will stay tacky for a while, so you're fine. Pop that in there. Right, got my glue, and I've got my scoochie, and I'm going to use Eton Mess, which is the Flitter Flakes or the Mega Flakes, and it has little touches of copper and red, and it's mainly silver, as you can see in there. And I'm going to use my butterfly stamp again. So I'm just going to wipe that off, just to make sure it's nice and clean. And now I'm going to go in with my flitter glue, and I'm just going to go all over the image of the butterfly. Just stamp it, or I should say just cover it as if you're covering, you know, your stamp with ink. And then I'm going to press down and then straight up again. Just enough pressure to let that stamp put the glue onto the card, and then off. And then this I'm just going to put in water as well, and I'll clean that in a minute. Okay. Now when you're doing anything with flitter glue, it's a good idea just to take a look and make sure, if you can see the white glue, it's not quite dry, it's not quite tacky enough. So you need to let that go clear, and then you can bring it back in and do, you know, all the different things that you want to do with it. So I'm just going to leave this to one side and we'll come back to it in just a minute. Whilst we're waiting for that just to dry, I'm going to go on to another one and show you something else that you can do. You can take yourself a spray bottle with some water, and I haven't put very much water in this one, and then just add yourself some of the luster paints, which are Luscious paints, whichever you want. I think let's go with the purple, and I'm just going to put some of the powder inside the bottle, just a couple of little measures of it, it's not that much, and then I'm going to put the lid on, give it a good shake, make sure that's all nicely dissolved, put the lid back on. And I'm also going to make a silver, because this is something that you can use to make a shimmer, especially with the silver on a lot of your other work. But I'm just going to pour some of that water away. It's a little bit too much in there. I wouldn't recommend that you leave your Luscious powders in water for too long. I wouldn't leave them any longer than a week, because there is a binder in here, but there isn't any preservative, so you may find that the water might go a little bit mouldy. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get just some white card here, and I'll just show you by spraying some of this on here. So you can have it fairly dark, or, you know, the more the luster that you, the Luscious powders that you add, the darker the colour will be. So you can do a nice spray. Again, you will find that the colour comes out a lot better when it's dry, especially the luster that you get on there. So again, I'm putting another one over to the side to dry. I'm going to bring back in the butterfly that I did with the embossing powder, and then I painted it in, and I'm going to bring in the silver, and I'm just going to spray it all over. Let's just get it started. And I've got a few droplets on there as well, because I quite like the look of that. And then you'll find that you'll have a nice luster to the back of any picture that you do like that. And as I said, all of these I will put up pictures once they're dry at the end of the video. So we have another one that we can try now, and I have another piece of white card, but what I'm going to do this time is that I'm going to wet down the paper. So I'm just literally going to put some water, then I'm going to come in with the powders, and I'm just going to put just a very small amount on a brush. Let's just get a little bit more water on here, because that card has just literally sucked all the water up. I think if you've got water paper card, you'll find that that's a lot better. Now this isn't working very well, because the card that I've picked up here has just soaked up all of that water. So what I was going to try and show you isn't going to work. See, that always happens when you actually go on, you know, to film it. Let's try. Let's try and grab another piece of card. Right, let's just see if this will work better. So I'm just going to put some water on again. You could spray this with some water as well. And then, I don't know if you can see, if the camera will pick that up, It's actually bleeding into the water that I've put down, so it's sort of spreading itself out a little bit. And this is quite a nice idea for making backgrounds as well. I don't know if you can see that. It starts to spread out, and what you could always do is you can come back in. I'll just use the silver, spray the silver over it, and you get some quite nice muted backgrounds with the different colour. Can you see where some of it is actually started to spread? And obviously the more water you use, you can sort of have it so it's dripping and making different patterns and things. Right, so let's have a quick clear up again. The piece that I did with the flitter glue, because it's tacky now, so I can start putting some flitter flake, and I'm going to put in some of the Luscious colours. Big fluffy brush, just take off some of that, and then come in with my scoochie and very gently just rub all over, taking off the flake that doesn't need to stay there because it's not stuck down to anything now. Just move that out the way, get my big fluffy brush, just go all over again, and then you can see you've got another way of using the Luscious powders with your Mega Flake, and that's really shimmery. I don't know if it's really picking it all up, but you know, that's absolutely beautiful. So let's go back in and have a look at our butterfly that we sprayed with the background. I don't know if you can pick up that shimmer now. And then we can come back in with the one where I did the stencil with paste. And then you've got the black in between. So I'm going to go in with a very watered down colour. That will lift off the colour that's on top. So you'll get all those colours coming back through. There we are. So you've got one really shimmery, shiny piece of work there, piece of art. The actual piece of card with Versamark, so cover it all over. And the tip with this one is that when you're putting the Versamark down, make sure that you don't leave any lines of the Versamark really standing out, because the powders will pick that up and you'll get sort of crisscross lines. So just try and go over a couple of times just to make sure that that Versamark has covered the card well. Oops. Trying not to leave any lines on there. Right, I need to bring back in my piece of paper. And you want your dry powders, your Luscious powders, and you want your fluffy paintbrush again. Just bang off. Make sure you don't use a brush that you lose your hairs, because this one's molting badly. And then what you want to do is you want to get yourself a baby wipe and your stamp and your Versamark pad. Let's grab another baby wipe. Now for this to work, each time you stamp down with your image, afterwards you need to clean it off, because basically what you're doing is you're putting it on top of those powders and you're going to have the residue come off on your stamp. So to get a nice clear image each time, you need to be cleaning your stamp in between. So if I just bring that up to show you what it looks like at the moment. You see all that shimmer on there. Okay, so I'm going to put some Versamark all over my butterfly. And I'm just going to be stamping off the butterfly on various areas. So I'm going to put it down, press down, so that Versamark is catching hold of those powders. Bring it up. And you should then be able to see that you're left with a black image, because it's obviously lifted the powders off and it's brought, you know, the image of the butterfly up. So come up black because you've used a black card. So that's another idea. And I think we've got one more to show, and that's, remember at the beginning I painted a background with the Luscious. This is the blue Luscious. Okay, so that's nice and dry now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in with my stamp once more. Let's just get those powders off. And then I'm going to use some black Versamark ink. And this is just to show you that you can stamp on top of these Luscious powders as well. Stamps on top of that, no problem whatsoever. So we've got quite a few toppers that we've made today. And just thinking about it, one more, to be honest, there are so many things that you can do with these powders that you just want to keep playing. But again, you can use, if you want a nice subtle look, you could take a stencil. I'm going to use some white card. Then very carefully, I'm just going to just do the one just to show you. Okay. Bring in your palette and a paintbrush. Whoops, knocked that off a bit. And I'm going to come in with some paint. I'm going to use the green that I made. Now you don't want it too thin, because obviously you don't want it to go through and underneath to the stencil. You know, you don't want it to sort of bleed underneath. So make sure your paint is quite nice and thick. Ideally it would be better if you had a stencil brush, but I haven't bought one out because I've just thought about this one. And then I'm just going to go in, hold my stencil down, and I'm hoping this is going to work, so it's not going to bleed underneath. And then I'm just going to paint over the stencil. No, that's not too bad. But again, once that dries totally, you're going to have a beautiful shimmer. It's just about picking that up now because some of it has dried. But again, you know, just if you can get hold of some of these paints, give them a, you know, give them a go, have a play. I think you'll be quite astonished with the amount of things that you can actually do with just a little couple of pots of these paints. So these are some of the techniques that we've done today. So filled up my piece of paper already. So yes, Luscious paints by IndigoBlu. They really are fun to play with, and I think it's money well spent because you can get so much out of you know, doing so many different techniques. I think my favourite one has to be, though, I do like the Luscious powders, putting them on top of Versamark and then taking some of the powders off with your stamp. I do like that effect. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, and I hope to see you again sometime soon. Bye for now.